Have you ever wondered what makes someone the most evil man in Britain? Well, in today's story, you'll meet a man who lives up to that title, Levi Bellfield. He didn't just kill. He stalked, manipulated, and terrorized. His hatred of women was not only terrifying, it was deadly. And for years, he got away with it. This is the case of a killer hiding in plain sight. A man who blended into everyday life so easily that even his closest friends didn't realize what he was truly capable of until it was too late. Let's go back to the beginning. Levi Bellfield was born on May 17, 1968, at West Middlesex Hospital in London. He was originally named Levi Rabbits, but the name changed after his father died of leukemia when Levi was 10 years old. His mother remarried, and he took the Bellfield name along with his siblings. They were raised in a council housing estate in southwest London. Life was not easy, but it was not a miserable one either. In fact, by all accounts, their upbringing was relatively stable, but Levi was different. From a very young age, Levi Bellfield despised women. To him, they were not equals, not even fully human. He saw them as objects, created to please men. To please him, and this distorted view only grew worse with age. Somehow, despite his warped thinking, Bellfield managed to attract partners over the years. But his relationships never lasted. And over time, his pattern became painfully clear. He fathered 11 children with 5 different women and left behind a trail of broken homes, fear, and emotional devastation, but even that was just the tip of the iceberg, because soon, his hatred would turn to violence. It began on March 21, 2002. A normal Thursday afternoon. Millie Dowler, 13, had just finished school and was walking home through the town of Walton-on-Thames, in Surrey. Like many parts of England, the streets were dotted with CCTV cameras, except for one. There was only a short stretch of about 20 to 30 yards that was free of cameras. Millie had disappeared into that tiny blind spot. No one had seen her again. Her family knew immediately that something was wrong. Millie was not the type of teenager to vanish without a word. She was strong-willed, independent, and incredibly close to her loved ones. She would have called. The police swung into action with everything they had, but nothing came of it. No leads. No witnesses. No clues. Meanwhile, across town, in West Drayton, Levi Bellfield and his 23-year-old girlfriend Emma were house-sitting for a friend. That night, Emma said Levi left around 3 a.m. because he couldn't sleep and wanted to go back to their apartment in Walton-on-Thames. It seemed odd, but not suspicious, at least. Not yet. The next day, when Emma returned to the apartment, she sensed something was wrong. The entire place was spotless, as if someone had thoroughly cleaned every nook and cranny. It seemed normal. Until you realized all the bedding was missing. Levi claimed the dog had had an accident and the sheets were ruined. So he threw them away. But that wasn't all. Emma's car was gone, the car Levi said he'd driven to the apartment that night. When she asked where it was, he told her he'd had too many drinks with a friend and left it somewhere else. But when they went to get it, it was gone. The car was never seen again. Despite all the warning signs, Emma didn't press on. Maybe she thought he was cheating. Maybe she didn't want to believe anything worse. She stayed, and that decision haunted her. Eventually, they moved into a new house in Little Benty, West Drayton. On the outside, they seemed like a normal couple. But to the neighbors, there was something about Bellfield that felt strange. He began to rage at an elderly couple down the street, verbally abusing them, vandalizing their garden, even allegedly pouring weed killer into their flower beds. The man loved gardening. Like Bellfield, he wanted to destroy anything that brought joy to others. To keep people away, he erected barbed wire fences, kept vicious dogs, and made his house look more like a fortress than a home. And Emma? Her demeanor changed, too. She seemed constantly frightened, tired, down. Like she was always trying to avoid making him angry. His former girlfriends described similarly terrifying behavior, unpredictable mood swings, paranoid eating rituals. At one point, he forced one of them to eat food from his plate because he thought she was trying to poison him. And when she became pregnant with a girl, things got worse. Bellfield had always wanted a son, and he hated the idea of having another daughter. By now, 6 months had passed since Millie had gone missing. Still no leads, until a group of mushroom pickers stumbled upon a decomposing body in the woods on Yateley Heath in Hampshire. It was Millie. The body was too badly decomposed to determine the cause of death. But it was her. 13 years old. All her belongings were gone, her handbag, her phone, her clothes. The police reclassified the case as a murder and launched Operation Ruby. But while they were still trying to figure out who killed Millie, Levi Bellfield struck again. After the discovery of Millie Dowler's body, the police were no closer to finding her killer. There were no suspects, no evidence, no witnesses. But Levi Bellfield? He wasn't finished. In fact, he was just getting started. Just a few months later, on February 4, 2003, the quiet suburb of Hampton, Middlesex, became the scene of another tragic murder. That night, Marcia McDonnell, a bright 19-year-old student, was walking home from a movie with friends. She got off the 111 bus near her home, turned onto her street and was just 100 yards from her front door when it happened. Without warning, someone came up behind her, slammed her hard on the back of the head, and she collapsed instantly. An ambulance was called. She was taken to intensive care. But by the next morning, Marcia was gone. She never made it home. CCTV footage from the bus showed a silver Vauxhall Corsa parked nearby. It followed Marcia's path as she drove. It was the only clue, but not many. Vauxhall Corsas were ubiquitous in the UK. At the time, they made up 3% of all cars on the road. And the footage was too grainy to make out the license plate. The police, however, felt it was no coincidence. A brutal, random attack. A girl walking alone after dark. Someone had been following her, stalking her, waiting for the right moment to strike. The press dubbed him the Flash Killer, a man who struck quickly and disappeared just as quickly. But what investigators didn't know was that the man they were looking for was spiraling out of control. Bellfield had recently taken a job as a nightclub doorman. It suited him perfectly. He liked to intimidate people, to be in control, to resort to violence when things went wrong, and behind the scenes, his violence against women continued. An ex-girlfriend told investigators horrifying stories. How he controlled every meal she ate. How her food never touched her plate. How he accused her of poisoning him. How he only hit her on the body, never in the face, so no one would notice the bruises. And he had a deep, obsessive hatred of women, especially those who were educated or middle class. In his twisted mind, the only way to defeat these women was to degrade them or kill them. But the police still couldn't connect the dots. For them, Millie's murder was one case. Marcia's murder was another. There were no connections. No suspects. No leads. Then came May 28, 2004, just over a year after Marcia's death. 18-year-old Kate Sheedy was walking home from a night out with friends in Isleworth, Middlesex. She noticed a white van with darkened windows behaving suspiciously. It stopped suddenly. Something about it made her shiver. Kate, smart and cautious, crossed the street to avoid the van, but the driver didn't stop. He turned around. He drove straight toward her. Hit her once. Then backed up and ran her over a second time before speeding off into the night. Kate's injuries were horrific, every rib broken, a ruptured spleen, spinal damage. But against all odds, she survived, and when she was finally strong enough to talk, she gave the police something they desperately needed, a description. It was a white van, with darkened windows, and the crucial detail was that the driver's side mirror was broken. This could be the break they needed, but then, a catastrophic failure. That white car was caught on CCTV the night Kate was attacked. But due to an administrative error, the footage was never flagged or reviewed. A crucial opportunity was missed. While the police were scrambling for clues, Bellfield continued to grow bolder. At the club where he worked, he began to brag, telling people about an upstairs room where he took girls after hours. Sometimes he even took them to his car. And sure enough, it matched Kate Sheedy's description perfectly, a white people mover with tinted windows. Just 3 months after attacking Kate, Bellfield struck again. And this time, it would send the investigation into overdrive. On a warm August night in 2004, the body of Emily Delagrange, 22, was discovered in Twickenham Green, just a short distance from where Kate had been attacked. Emily had been out with friends, caught the bus and, like Marcia, may have fallen asleep and missed her stop. She asked the driver how much longer it would be to get home. He told her 10 minutes. But Emily decided to walk home. It was a decision that cost her her life. Like Marcia, Emily had been struck in the back of the head with great force. Her body was found in the middle of the green, a shortcut she had taken to save time. Now Chief Inspector Colin Sutton was involved. Unlike the others, he did not treat these cases as separate. He reopened the investigation into Millie, Marcia, Kate, and now Emily. They were all young women, all attacked in a small geographic area, all late at night, all walking home or trying to get home. And all of them, whether killed or left for dead, had been targeted, stalked, hunted. It was no coincidence. This was a man. Meanwhile, Bellfield had moved on to his next money-making scheme, illegal pinning. He would post a fake advertisement for a brothel. When men arrived and parked, he would clip their cars and extort money, knowing full well that they would not report it to the police. And while he was running this dastardly operation, Inspector Sutton was putting the pieces together. He discovered that Emily's phone, unlike the other victims, had not been turned off. In fact, it was still working 20 minutes after her body was found. By then, it had traveled all over town, from Twickenham Green to Walton-on-Thames. That's right, the very street where Millie Dowler had disappeared. Let me know when you're ready for part 3, where we'll cover Bellfield's takedown and arrest, his shocking behavior in court, Millie Dowler's murder trial, and his descent into darkness behind bars. Joanna isn't just a casual acquaintance, she's Bellfield's ex-girlfriend. She lived with him. She survived him. And she knows exactly what he's capable of. The police took her story seriously. They checked his record. On the surface, nothing stood out, just a series of minor offenses. But then one item stood out. In May 2004, Bellfield had been arrested in a white Toyota Previa, a people mover, that matched Kate Sheedy's description perfectly. Even more damning? The police discovered that Bellfield had owned a silver Vauxhall Corsa, the same type of car seen on surveillance cameras near the scene of Marcia McDonnell's murder. That was enough. On November 20, 2004, Sheriff Sutton and his team raided Bellfield's home. He didn't show up right away. The officers searched every room, nothing. But just as they were about to give up, a sergeant had a hunch and opened the loft hatch. There, Levi Bellfield was naked, hiding in a corner of the loft. The sergeant climbed up, aimed his flashlight, and uttered one of the most famous British police phrases, "You're hurt." When Bellfield was arrested, things began to get complicated. Those who had feared him began to speak out. The wall of silence was broken. DCI Sutton suddenly had 27 ongoing investigations, from rape to assault to murder, but the police needed evidence, not just a confession. They needed to connect Bellfield directly to the crime. Joanna became one of the most important witnesses. She describes in detail how Bellfield abused her, only hit her legs and torso to hide bruises, punished her if she cried or screamed, made sexually explicit comments to schoolgirls on the street, constantly expressed hatred for women, especially middle-class girls. Bellfield didn't just hate women, he hated them, especially those who were confident, educated, and independent. To him, those traits made them a threat, and the only way to control that threat was to destroy it. By March 2, 2006, the evidence had finally been assembled. Bellfield was formally charged with the murders of Marcia McDonnell and Emily Delagrange, the attempted murder of Kate Sheedy. As DCI Sutton read out the charges, Bellfield showed no emotion, no remorse, no anger, no fear. He said only two words: not guilty. In 2007, Bellfield appeared before the Old Bailey, one of the oldest and most prestigious courts in the United Kingdom. From the very first day, his behavior was worrying. He appeared bored, often staring at the ceiling or biting his nails. He tried to appear calm, articulate, even polite, as if that would conceal the monster inside, but the jury was not buying it. Kate Sheedy took the stand and described how Bellfield ran over her twice and left her for dead. Her courage in court left a lasting impact. On February 25, 2008, Levi Bellfield was found guilty on all charges. And in a rare move by the United Kingdom, he was sentenced to life in prison, meaning he will never be released. But one case remains: Millie Dowler. It has now been 6 years since Millie disappeared. Inspector Sutton has looked into it all and made a chilling discovery. Bellfield used to live just 20 yards from where Millie was last seen. The detail was overlooked during the initial investigation. But now, it has come into focus. In February 2008, police named Bellfield as the prime suspect in the murder of Millie Dowler. They reviewed CCTV footage from 2002. 10 minutes after Millie was last seen, a red Daewoo Nexia was spotted leaving the area. It was the exact make and model of Emma, Bellfield's girlfriend at the time. The car disappeared forever the day after Millie went missing. In May 2011, Bellfield was finally brought to trial for the murder of Millie Dowler. The trial was tense, emotional, and painful. Joanna Collins testified again, telling the heartbreaking story of her life with Bellfield. But this time, she refused to testify from behind a screen. She wanted to look him in the eye. Bellfield squirmed. He rocked in his seat. For the first time in public, the control freak showed signs of losing control. When Emma, his ex-girlfriend, testified, she chose to hide behind a screen. But her words were just as damning, and the jury listened. After 7 long weeks, Bellfield was convicted of the murder of Millie Dowler. He was given another life sentence, and when the verdict was read, he yawned arrogantly. No apology, no emotion, no shame. Since then, Bellfield has remained a toxic presence in prison. He has submitted fake confessions to multiple unsolved murders, hoping to get noticed. He has been attacked by other inmates. One even slashed his face with a homemade blade. and frankly, no one has mourned him. In 2023, it was revealed that Bellfield had even proposed to a new partner while behind bars, a sickening reminder of how manipulative he still is. But thankfully, he will never be released. He now spends 23 hours a day in solitary confinement at HMP Franklin, one of Britain's toughest prisons. His cellmates, mass murderers, pedophiles, terrorists. Even among monsters, Bellfield was despised. The world is safer with Levi Bellfield behind bars. But no sentence can erase the pain. We remember Millie Dowler, 13, Marcia McDonnell, 19, Emily Delagrange, 22, and Kate Sheedy, 18, a miracle survivor. They were girls, they were students, they were friends. They were living their lives when a predator decided to destroy them, for no other reason than his hatred and control. Their stories will never be forgotten. If this story touches you, consider sharing your thoughts in the comments. And as always, we honor the memory of these young women. Be safe, be vigilant, and remember, sometimes, the most dangerous people look just like everyone else.